All right, welcome to a coding challenge. You might remember me from a previous coding challenge. I made that joke already in that other video. But that was a coding challenge. They are coding. It's in two parts. It's a coding challenge in two parts. This is the second part. So what I'm going to do in the second part is take the knowledge from the first part where I looked at how to texture geometry with an image and apply that to this idea of a cloth simulation to try to make a waving flag with an image on it with our new friend, the unikitty. So you can see this is kind of happening here. There's this crazy image that's being textured to this geometry, and if you didn't watch that video and don't know about how the texture function works, I would encourage you to go back and look at that first. But we're just going to get started right here. So this is kind of a rare thing that I'm doing here where I'm not starting from scratch, but I'm actually also building off code that I built from scratch in a previous coding challenge. So you can also go back and watch that one. It was coding challenge number 20, 3D cloth. But here's what I'm going to do. So let's save that, and now I'm ready. Okay, so let's look at this. The first thing that I want to do is I want to make this more like looking like a flag. So even before I add the texture, let's make it look like a flag. So a couple things I'm going to do. Number one is this is where I lock the particles. So I lock the particles 2 on the top. So if I remember right, I could say lock 1 on the top and 1 on the bottom. And you can see, oh, that is weird. That is weird. So another thing I want to do is get rid of this rotating right now, because it's making it confusing for me to see what's going on. So let's run this again and see. Oh, okay, wait. Oh, but there's all this. Okay, let's do something else. Let's get rid of the gravity for a second. Let's take out this gravity behavior, because that's kind of confusing me what's going on. Okay, so that's, so the orientation is also completely different. I forgot about that. I oriented the cloth as this thing up. So what I actually need to do, what I probably could do is just change the way the scene is rotated. Let's see, how did I do that? So if I rotate the whole scene, if it's up here on the x-axis, it will be rotate around the x-axis, right? By 90 degrees. Will that work? There we go. Okay, so there it is. I could have just changed the way I created, but let's just keep it. I'm going to rotate the whole scene that way. And then what I want to do is, now I've confused myself. So where is the gravity pointing? Is the gravity, which axis is pointing down? And maybe I should reorient the way I do the particles. Let's reorient the way I do the particles, because this is going to be way too hard to figure out if I rotate the scene, right? So this is a better idea. Look at this. I set all the particles with a fixed y, and x and z are what are changing, which is why x moves across this way, or x moves across this way, and z moves across this way. Now I want z to be fixed, and x and y to move. So all I need to do, I think, is just change this to y, and set all the particle locations to y, and have z be some, I don't know, just make it 0. So I have a feeling that there's going to be a bit of a problem here, which is going to be in the wrong place. It's at the bottom. That's no big deal. I could say y should start at rows, negative rows times w divided by 2, so that it starts higher up. And you can see, there we go. Now what I want to do, I also want to give myself some more space here, because I'm going to have this nice flag waving simulation. So I think I'm going to just give myself 800, and I think x should actually start at, I don't know, I'm just going to sort of hard code some stuff in here to like shift it over a little bit. And that's too much. Shift it over like this. Okay, so now, there we go. The other thing I'm going to do, this is kind of silly, but I might as well, is I'm going to, at the end, I'm just going to draw a line. Stroke 255, stroke weight 4, and I'm going to draw a line from, where's the first particle? The first particle starts at this location, comma this location, oh boy. Line from here. I should do a better job of thinking about how to organize these as variables, but I just want to quickly put something to make it look like the flag's attached. And I'm going to go from that point all the way to this same x, and then down to the bottom of the screen. There we go. So this is a flag, but it's not waving or doing anything. And I might need to set it back on the z-axis or something, depending on how things go. But now I can put that gravity back in. So gravity points down. And let's look at it again. Oop. I need to add the gravity behavior, not just look at it and run it again. There we go. Oh my goodness, look at that flag. It's just falling down. There's nothing going on. So one thing that I want to do is push, add some wind. So I want to add some wind, and I could probably take out the gravity just in terms of like finessing it here, but I want to push it in that other direction. So the particles, are the particles all in an array? The particles are in a 2D array, and I'm doing all this stuff with them here, and then, so there's a lot of things I got to change, but one thing that I can do, this is all just setting it up, sorry. Perfect, this is where I want. This is a loop that draws all the particles probably as dots or something. So let's take out s.display. So what I want to see is just the particles. Oh, you can't see them. So what is the particle display function? Oh, it's taken out. So I don't know why that was commented out. So let's put that back in. So these are just the particles. And boy, they fell quite far away. Wow. These should be at 0, 0. Right? If I'm I don't know, I had that coded from before, it was a mistake. So if I'm translating to x, y, z, the particle should be drawn at 0, 0. Okay, there we go. There we go. Okay, so this looks like what I expected it to. Now I can see, and what I was going to do, I think it'll be easier to look at what's going on also if I really, really increase the resolution of this. So I'm going to make the number of columns and rows. I should have these calculate based on each other, but I'm just going to make it much. So you can see now this mesh is a less high resolution. So we can sort of see there it is. So now what I want to do, what I wanted to do here, and I don't need to display them, is I want to apply a force to them. So I'm using the toxiclibs physics engine, and it has a function called apply, it's add force. Yeah, there it is, add force. So this is a function that allows me to arbitrarily add a force to it. And I'm going to add a force like, and that force should be a vector. So I'm going to call it wind, and I'm going to say vec2d wind equals a new vec2d, and it points 5, 0. And, it needs to be 3D. I forget that I'm in 3D world. So 5, 0, 0. So now we can see the wind is sort of keeping it more like a flag. Now here's the thing. It's working, it kind of looks like a flag, but it would be much nicer if that wind were kind of inconsistent, and also if maybe there was some wind along the z-axis as well. And I always just use Perlin noise in these types of situations. So what I'm going to do, I'm not even close to the texturing yet. Well, I'm close to the texturing. So let's try to make the wind a bit more interesting. One thing that I can do, I've got this two-dimensional space, which is really perfect here. So I can consider an x offset for Perlin noise and a y offset for Perlin noise. And I can say the noise value is noise x offset, y offset. And for every column, x off should increment by something. And for every row, y off should increment by something. And then, actually this should probably be at the bottom, not that it really matters. And then what I could do is I could say this is n times 5, and this is n minus 0.5. So those should probably be different. Should use different values for. Okay, let's be better about this. Let's say, because I want to make this look nice. Let's say wind x is noise of x off, y off, and wind z is noise of x off, y off. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to offset these by. I'm going to just look at a different part of the noise space that's arbitrarily some other number so that I get different values for wind x and wind x. For wind x and wind z. And then what I need to do is map those. This is a little bit silly to use a map here because the range of noise is between 0 and 1, and maybe I want to always have some wind, so between 1 and 5, always pointing in that direction. And then I want to map Z, though, which has a range between 0 and 1 to between like -1 and 1. Because the Z, the wind could push in and out. And so now if I do that, let's see what we get. We're getting kind of more like the wind is kind of changing over time. But here's the thing. It's kind of settling in. I can do even better. Because even though the wind is different in a sort of smoothed way across all of the points, it's not every frame. So I can add a third, boy, this is like a lot of Perlin-Noise stuff for all this texturing stuff that I didn't realize I could add. I can add a third dimension, which is really the frames of animation, the time. Perlin-Noise, so Z is really, the X and Y is the noise in the 2D space of the flag, and Z is every cycle of animation. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to look at Z off, and I think I could just use the same Z off for each. I don't think that'll matter. And then globally, every frame, Z off will change by some amount. So now I believe that I'm going to have something that feels a bit more like wind that's changing over time, and it's not really going to settle in as much. I'm sure I could play with the parameters and the amounts, but you can see we've got our flag. And I think I kind of want, I think the gravity should maybe be not so strong. So I'm going to just make the gravity a little bit weaker, and I'm going to go back now to having it be many, many more points, which I also think will be more interesting to look at. Whoa, okay, so I think I've made the wind a bit too strong. It's like really stretching it out. This is the kind of thing that really some finesse and some playing around. I'm gonna let you, if you download this code, like play with the parameters a bit more, but I can make the wind a little bit less strong. Also the strength of the springs is probably a big factor here. So if I go into the springs, they all get made, where do I make the springs? They all get made with a strength of 0.8. So if I made it like a 0.1, I think it's going to make it really crazy flimsy. Look at that look at that insanity. And I could probably strengthen it up a bit by making the strength 1, which might give it a little bit more. So who knows whether this is better or worse. But now we're ready, right? Now we're ready to do the texturing. This was the point of this video in the first place. So where's the geometry that I can texture? So what's actually being drawn here? If I look inside draw, you can see this is actually where the flag is being drawn. Every spring is a connection between 2 points. And s.display, what does that do? It draws a line between those 2 points. So now what I need to do is, I don't want to do this anymore. That's not going to work for me. What I need to do, and I think I want to do this in another loop, because this loop is crazy, but I need a loop of columns and rows. I need to render this with the particles. So I need to go back to particle.display. Particles index I, index j dot display. So let's just make sure this works. So now I'm rendering it as a lot of points. And I just want to make that easier to see by making those points smaller. And you can see that now. So this is really what it is. It's a whole lot of points. Remember that triangle strip thing? All I need to do is fill it with triangle strips now, from top to bottom. Okay? Could you add 1 or 2 more locked points? I definitely could. So maybe that's a good suggestion. Maybe I'll do that. I kind of have some momentum here, so maybe I'll add that a little bit later. But that's not a bad idea, to lock a few more points to the pole. And it wouldn't be too hard to do that. It would just be a matter of picking some other points to add right here. Okay, so what I need to do now, though, is I need the x and I need the y. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off the physics just for a second. So what's the easiest way for me to do that? Just comment out physics.update. So if I comment out physics.update, oh, but I don't, oh, because there should be no physics, but I forgot to display anything. So I just want to make sure this still works. So there it is, but no physics. There's the flag. Okay. So now I wonder if my rest length is off too. That's something to think about. But so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to say begin shape and end shape. And I'm going to say begin shape points. And I'm going to say vertex, and oh my goodness, I cannot believe that I really need the Z here. I'm going to say vertex x, y, z. Let's see what we get. So now I should get, there's my geometry. It's just a set of points. Okay, we're in good shape. Okay, so now I don't want points. What I want are triangle strips. So triangle strip. So this is going to be wildly off, but let's run this through. What happened? Oh my goodness, I can't even make any sense of this whatsoever. Let's make sure there's no fill. Let's make sure the stroke weight is just 1. And let's lower the resolution again. Boy, this is driving me crazy. I want to have a variable. So I'm going to call this variable resolution, and I'm going to call it, I'm going to say it's 1. And then I'm going to say 40 divided by resolution. 40 divided by resolution. We can make this a float, I guess. And then I'm going to say width is w times resolution. So this way, oh no, this needs to be an int. Okay. This way, this should be exactly what I had before. And then it's hard to see. And then if I change this to 2, I should be able to see it even better. If I change this to 4, we can see, okay, so this is not right, obviously. It's drawing some crazy mutant triangle strip thing that's not right. So what's the issue here? The main thing that I think will make this a lot easier to deal with is that right now that loop, the columns is on the outer loop. So it's actually saying for every column, go through all the rows. I could have the triangle strips going down, but to me, for whatever reason, I'm mentally thinking of it going across. So I actually want to have the columns in the inner loop. So I say for every row, go do all the columns, but do the column and then really for every y, do all the x's. And do the x, do x and y plus the next one. So in other words, what I'm saying is, I don't know if that was clear, but I want this to be in here just the way I'm thinking about it. And then what I want to say is, give me 2 different y's. Like give me y1. Actually, I need all of them. I need x1, y1, and z1. And then I need the one that's right below it, right? Because the triangle strip is going to connect to the row that's below. So I need to say then x2, y2, z2. And what is the one below? J plus 1, j plus 1, j plus 1. So then I can have another vertex. 2, 2, 2. Okay? So I have 2 vertices. And now let's take a look at what this does. Oops. Array index out of bounds. Oh, of course. So what's the problem here? I can't do the last row anymore because every row I'm looking at 2. So I have to say j is less than rows minus 1. That'll get rid of that error. And you can see, okay, so this kind of looks right, but there's all this stuff like connecting back to the beginning. So the thing is, the triangle strips, each row has to be a distinct unit. So even though I said begin shape and end shape for the whole thing, and when I get to the end over here, it has to connect all the way back to the beginning. Now I could try to do something clever where it kind of wraps around, but what's going to make it much simpler is I can just say, let's actually begin the triangle strip for every row and end the triangle strip for every row. And now you can see that I now have this whole flag as triangle strips. Boy, we're really close now. And I can go back and I can change the resolution to 2, and we can see still the same thing. This whole flag as triangle strips. So now what do I do? Here's the good part. Now what I do is I need to load the image. So it's time to say p-image unikitty. Then I'm going to say, I don't know why I'm looking at the bottom, unikitty equals load image unikitty.jpg. And that file just has to be in the data folder for the processing sketch, which you can see that it is right there. And now I can say right here, texture unikitty. And all I need now are the UV coordinates. So what are the UV coordinates? Well, U is a value, X, what is it? I and J. I goes between 0 and columns, and the image pixels go between 0 and unikitty.width. Now I could use normalized texture coordinates so that this just goes between 0 and 1. That probably makes things easier. It's kind of nice to do that. Maybe I should do that. What do you think? I'll do that. I'm going to say texture mode, was it normal? This way I can just do this. I don't really need map even. I could just take I and divide it by. So this actually makes things simpler because I can take I and divide it by columns. Whatever, I'm going to keep map. Which has a range between 0 and columns, now to map that between 0 and 1. And V, which has J, which is a range between 0 and rows, to have also between 0 and 1. So now, U, V. And then the next vertex, all I need to do is redo J and ask for J plus 1, right? Because I need the V. U can be the same, right? It's the same X values, but I'm looking for the pixels in the row below. So V has to be J plus 1 and V here. Oh my goodness, I'm in front of my code. So I think this should work. Rows minus 1. This is a good point. It really should be columns minus 1 and rows minus 1. I think that's right. Rows minus 1. Because the range is actually, if there's 10 columns, the range is between 0 and 9. I think that's right. So I'm going to say V1, I'm going to say V2, V1, and V2. So now, if we run this, we should see unikitty on the flag. There we go. This is so exciting. Unikitty is on the flag. Now what we can do is put the physics back on. I need a unikitty song to play. And now we have the unikitty flag. There is the unikitty flag. Oh, all of a sudden it's not stretching out so much. What did I do? It seems less crazy than it was before. And by the way, now I really want to just take off this. This would be a little bit nicer if I had a non-square image that I could make a little bit wider also, and then the columns and rows wouldn't have to be equal because a square flag is a little bit strange. But I'm going to say no stroke. I would really like to maybe increase its wind or whatever, but I think I'm done. So here we go. You can make your own creative version of this. It's the unikitty flag. I took a beautiful drawing of a unikitty. I have textured it onto some geometry in processing. I have added some physics with the toxiclibs library, and it is the unikitty flag. Thank you very much, and I will see you. Good night. That's my last coding challenge ever. I feel like, what else could you possibly ever want to make after this? I'm sure I'll be back. I'm very tired right now. You're watching this in the future where it's just like one video, but I've been live streaming today. I'm in my hour number 5 here. So see you later in the next video sometime. Have a good day, evening, morning, whatever time it is for you. Go give somebody a hug. Draw a unikitty. Talk to you later.